Their streak continues. 4-0 in consecutive seasons for the first time since 1955 and 56.
It's a grand old flag, it's a high-flying flag, it's the emblem for me and for you. It's the emblem of the team we love, the team of the red and the blue. Every heart beats true for the red and the blue, and we sing this song to you. Should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on the red and the blue.
Mark Soderstrom with Max Gawn.
Max, congratulations. A wonderful win. You come to hostile territory and terrific. You must be very proud of the boys.
It's a really good match for where we're at. Obviously, we've won our first 3 games. We come away to one of the hardest places to win away on a Thursday night, and their backs were against it. And their first quarter was a really good standard brand of football. Probably wasn't scoreboard-wise, but people at home might disagree with me there, but they brought it. So to be able to weather that and then be able to play out to the end.
Max, I've got to say, I think the discipline from your boys as you got further and further ahead, second, third, fourth, fifth efforts was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, we had a bit of a wake-up call in a JLT game against Carlton. With a lot of ill-discipline going away from what our trademark football is, and it was a wake-up call we sort of needed it at the time. And then the first 4 games, like we've had our back line decimated. We've had Tomlinson and Joel Smith in. Jake Lever finally got back tonight. We've still got Hibbert and Salem and Petty still to come back. So you see, like, they had a goal opportunity late in the third quarter. We were able to chase down Trent Rivers and James Jordan. That sort of stuff really inspiring.
Obviously, Jake Lever comes back in seamlessly alongside Stephen May. It was like the Great Wall out there tonight. Couldn't get through.
They were back tonight. Yeah. I think they missed each other. Maisie reckons it's been the hardest work ever trying to get Joel Smith to stand in the right spot. All of a sudden, Jake Lever comes back. Joel Smith will be back next week. Harry Petty, it's getting better down there.
Your kick a goal in the third quarter, fantastic, a long one. Then there was one just after that. You sort of manufactured something a little unusual.
I kicked it backwards. Yeah. Look, I've had 2 shots on my left foot in the last 2 weeks, and they've both gone absolutely nowhere. So I'm up with the left foot away.
Mate, congratulations. Wonderful performance, Max.
Thanks, Tony. Good man.
Good, mate.
Points at quarter time, 37 at the half, 47 at 3/4 time. Got out to a 53-point lead before some late goals to Port Adelaide reduced the final margin to 32 points. 10-8 to 4-12 as we head back down to Soda.
From one start to another, Christian Petracca, well done. Great win. Anytime you come over here, massive.
Yeah, it is. It's a bit of a hostile environment, so for us to come over here, then we knew they were going to come out firing 0-3, and I thought we played our Melbourne football, our brand. Our defence was unbelievable all game, and it was a bit rusty early on, but we got the score on the board in the second quarter. Many
years ago, coming to Adelaide was a hoodoo for the D's, but obviously had the qualifying final here against Brisbane last year. It's become a bit of a happy hunting ground. There's no fear here.
We don't mind it here. It's quite a skinny ground, so you always feel like you're in play, and sort of suits our game style. But yeah, we were a bit haunted here early on, but we've sort of changed that now, and it's just great. Obviously, the fans out here are awesome as well.
You had the knee strap last week and that coming in. How's it travelling at the moment? You feeling okay?
Yeah, feeling fine, mate.
No problem?
No problem. Just a bit of precautionary stuff with the strapping. So
he certainly spread the light beautifully in the midfield. Just watching Tommy Sparrow just starting to evolve more and more every week.
He's an absolute star, mate. He enables me and Clayton and Viney to do our thing. He's so selfless, and that's the beauty about our team at the moment. Everyone's just willing to sort of sacrifice their own role to allow the team to flourish.
Right on, mate. Congratulations on the win.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.
Welcome back to Thursday Night Footy on Fox. The Demons remain undefeated, a 32-point win over Port Adelaide. It was a nightmare night for the Power and Ken Hinkley. That's going to be the big story, undoubtedly, out of this evening. But really, the D's, they did what they had to do. It was professional, it was mature, and they come away with another 4 points. They tick it off.
Which, at the end of the day, is all Simon Goodwin's looking for. Just taking care of business, 11 wins in a row. You're right, they weathered an unusual game style from Port early. They showed a little bit of class when they needed to hit the scoreboard. And in the end, the margin kind of flatters Port Adelaide, let's be honest.
Yeah, the scoreline didn't reflect Melbourne's dominance. They dominated in the contest on the inside. They dominated the uncontested ball on the outside. Defensively, they were elite. They gave up 2 goals late, but their desperation to defend, no matter the scoreline, stands out, and they just play professional football now. They just do what it takes to win.
Yeah, I think it was the way that they won, and you're right, the scoreboard flattered Port Adelaide in the end, but the desperate acts, even when Port Adelaide looked like they were out and the game was dead and buried, they were still able to put on those pressure acts. I mean, Port, they tried a different game style. They tried to control the ball, which they did okay for a quarter, but they weren't putting their own scoreboard pressure on. So then you think, well, is that working? Then they went away from that, and that just allowed Melbourne to come in. Melbourne's pressure was up. You're right, the contested possession, the clearances were so far in Melbourne's favour, it wasn't funny. So there's some soul-searching there.
It's an interesting game in the context of what people expected before the season, Joey, because coming into the year, everyone assumed that Melbourne would continue on with this brilliance, which so far they are doing. But we also thought that Port Adelaide were a contender, and what we've seen so far, and certainly what we've seen tonight, isn't the case.
Well, it's fair to say they're no longer a contender, not this season anyway. I mean, look at that stat there. That basically sums it up. But I certainly did. I thought they were still a top 4 team. They, they'd won a lot of games over the previous 2 seasons and just had fallen short in finals. I thought they could elevate again. But for some reason, it just hasn't gone that way. And I think the Brisbane game in round 1 was pretty good. I mean, they're playing probably the second best team in the competition, and they were competitive. Then they were really disappointing against Hawthorn. You wonder what effect that had. Couldn't beat Adelaide. And now today, they just looked lost. They looked like they had no confidence. They were lost. They weren't sure what they were trying to do. I was expecting a real sort of emotional bounce from them in the first quarter in particular, that energy that we've seen from Port. There were some worrying signs, even though the scoreboard was still close at quarter time. And then in the end, Melbourne did what they did when they put the foot down. And like Geordie said, I think it's a real concern for Port Adelaide now where this season goes.
Well, I think they've lost their mojo, they've lost their confidence. But for me, it's all about the midfield. And because the midfield that has been a much vaunted and highly rated midfield with a lot of big names has been good in the past, all of a sudden, them being poor is putting pressure on both ends. So they're getting poor ball, poor service going forward. The defence is under immense pressure because they're not getting anywhere near the defensive structure they need at the stoppages. So it's put all the other players out on the ground under pressure. And if they can't fix the midfield very, very quickly, it's going to be a long season.
We will have Ken Hinckley's press conference right here on Fox Footy, which will be a fascinating view to see how he responds. He was under pressure coming in. The questions will be coming thick and fast, no doubt. Melbourne and their run from here, they've got a fair trot at the MCG, George.
They do.
And, well, who can stop this team?
Well, I mean, I don't think they played their absolute best tonight. As Jason said, they had to weather a different game plan. So that's what sides will come up against Melbourne and try and invent or change the way that they play to try and get a win over such a dominant side. So if you're on the Melbourne team at the moment, you've really got to have your mind open to the variations in which the teams will approach the way they play and then just bide your time, because as we saw tonight, Port Adelaide tried it for a quarter and then they got the game back on their terms and were able to kick away. But I think the way they played tonight, in terms of the desperation, the running patterns and all that type of stuff, I think would please Simon Goodwin. They could have had a bigger win than what they performed at tonight, and the margin, what was it, 32 points in the end. But it's a win on the road, you take them.
And that's probably a scary thing. Melbourne aren't playing their best yet. We haven't seen their very best yet. They've stepped up when they've needed to in patches in games, and they're just getting the job done like the professional team they are.
And the pressure within the side to hold your spot, Jace, is immense. We know Ben Brown came out of health and safety protocols today. They haven't elected to play him. He's one that wants to try to get back in. Lever came into the side, walked into the side, of course, an All-Australian defender. It's just such a hard team to get into.
It is. It is. Unfortunately, I think from a Melbourne perspective, Sam Wiedemann probably didn't make enough of what was happening for him. So he looks the obvious choice for Brown to come in at probably his expense. But look, when you've got a fit list and you've got players, what they do also get, I think, is the opportunity now to rest players and get their workload right as they get deeper into the season, instead of thinking, oh, we've got to play our best team and win every week. I think you get the opportunity just to manage your squad a little bit better.
Our KFC player of the match is Big Max Gawn. He did a few funny things along the night that provide a little bit of amusement, but on the most part, it was another stellar performance, Geordie, from the All-Australian.
He was outstanding, and to be quite honest, Lysette looked lost at certain parts of the game. You know, when you got Max and Luke Jackson running him ragged, he just looked like he had no petrol tickets. He's hurt his shoulder early on in the game, but Max just charges forward hard, makes the other ruckman defend, and Lysette just didn't know what to do with him. Highly influential, puts himself in positions where he can impact the game, whether it be down the line or in the forward line, or even deep in defence. He pushes so hard up and down the ground. There's a key reason why he's a leader of the football club. He was best on ground. You love ruckman?
You have to. They're entertaining. Not everything always goes according to plan, Sarah, but you got to love Max Gawn. I mean, and you can see the way the players embrace him. There's genuine passion there for him because they know he gives his heart and soul to that club.
It's funny. He knows his limitations off the field, but as soon as the siren sounds, and he just forgets about what he can and can't do on the field. So he's and he has a laugh at himself, which is always fun.
George, you were really impressed with the desperation that the D's showed, and I'm sure Simon Goodwin would be as well. There are a few examples late in the game where the result was all sewn up and they still were really fighting. Yeah, so you can look at this game two ways. You can assess Port Adelaide and what they were able to do in the first quarter and then they fell away, or you can look at the patterns and the behaviours that Melbourne shown on a night where they didn't necessarily play their absolute best football. So we showed this highlight before, and it's a Georgiades point, but you can just see all the Melbourne players running so hard into defence. The game was over, done. You see there an attempted tackle, Angus Brayshaw comes in, and then James Jordan's the one. Just see that desperation, one effort, then he gets back up, two efforts, and ends up touching the ball to stop Port Adelaide from kicking a goal. So those types of efforts, when the game is out and you're not absolutely playing your best, they're the ones that get shown during the week. They're the behaviours you want to be a premiership side year on year.
It stood out, those efforts, just those last little efforts, the last couple of steps to get a fist in, to lay a tackle, those little things that we probably hadn't seen from Port Adelaide. It does stand out, particularly when they're up by 40, 50 points, and that's why they're such a good team. They value those things, they celebrate the little things, and they do it no matter what the scoreline is, and that's what you need to do to prepare yourself for a final series. And they're player-driven standards too, aren't they? I mean, you don't coach for things like that. You want them to do those things, but it's have the players got the discipline and the desire to do it. And when you push each other, and you would know, Louis, when you're playing a team that's dominant for a while, you set such high standards, and if anyone drops off, you get reminded pretty quickly, don't you?
Yeah, and that's what you review. You say, how does a side like Melbourne keep motivated? Well, that stuff would get shown, and contrary to that, if it's not happening, the behaviours are starting to slip, well, you either fall out of the side or that is shown in the team meeting on a Monday. What about Port's connection in the forward line tonight? That ball movement, we're going to have a look at it with thanks to Zero. It just wasn't there, was it? That connection between mids and forwards. Yeah, you're right. So they came in with a specific game plan to keep the ball off Melbourne and just deny them possession. So they had plus 60 marks for across the night, and this is what we didn't necessarily see all of the night. They possessed the ball, but they went back and wide, and they didn't give themselves opportunity to come through the middle of the ground and use that type of lead up and really engage the defence. But this was the last kick inside 50, Joe. This was the kick early on that let them down massively on a big night where they needed scores early. And it's the final kick inside 50 that's cost them all season. So they've won the inside 50 count the previous 3 weeks, but their efficiency inside 50 has been horrible. And they probably are a side that have relied a lot on Charlie Dixon, not only to kick their goals, but just as a bailout, to kick to Charlie Dixon. You know he'll bring the ball to ground and compete. But now without him, and we put it on Todd Marshall and Georgiades before the game and said, well, it's up to them now to sort of lead this forward line. Unfortunately, they're still young and developing. They're not quite getting the job done. The small forwards again tonight, Geordie, went missing, so they weren't able to lock the ball in or apply any pressure, and it was just coming out too easy. So they've got some real issues in their forward 50, both with personnel, but I think now it's also affecting the midfield. They seem to lack confidence, who to go to, where to kick it, the connection with their forwards, and when that happens, then the rest of the game breaks down. They're just really struggling to find any sort of potency going forward. 4 goals, 12 is pretty horrible kicking. The accuracy is the other massive issue. It's been an issue all season. OK, it certainly has become a problem as we head into the Melbourne rooms, and Jack Viney has been good enough to join us. Jack, what did you make of that game? It was obviously a really difficult game in terms of pressure in the midfield from you guys. We didn't see Port hit the levels that we were hoping them to. What was it like out there in the middle?
Yeah, it was a really tough game. Obviously, pretty low scoring for a large portion of the game. It was pretty physical, contested in the inside there. You know, Port really liked to try and keep the ball off us, you know, go around us, which we saw that tonight a lot. But, you know, I think we, you know, adapted pretty well and got some really good looks going back offensively.
Jack, it was a very interesting game style that Port did adopt. They just wanted to play possession, keep the ball away from you. It was slow, it was very low scoring. What were the adjustments made by Simon Goodwin at quarter time?
Yeah, you know, they were switching a great deal. I suppose we feel like it wasn't necessarily hurting us too badly, so it wasn't, something we tried to hit on the head right away. We obviously tried to stop them switching, let them switch once, and then we can try and, stop it, get them going down, kicking up the field a bit more. But, they did a great job of finding options through the corridor and wide to go around us. So we did our best we could, and then just tried to maximise our opportunities on the way back when we turned it over.
Congratulations tonight, Jack. We were just praising Maxi Gawn, his game tonight. We thought he was dominant. And that's always great as a midfielder. You stand taller when your big ruckman is dominating at both ends of the ground and around the stoppages. Just makes your life much easier.
Yeah, obviously Port missing some big targets. So our big blokes, Gawny being one of them, stepping up tonight and really dominating the air. Gives us first serve, first use of the ball and continue to take us forward. So, yeah, Maxi was great tonight.
Jack, there was a funny snap where he kicked it the wrong way. Do you sledge him out on the ground when that happens? Do you give him a little drive-by?
He's a pretty heated man on the footy field, so you don't really want to get stuck into him because you don't know what you'll get back. But he's a bit not unreliable, but you just never know what you're going to get. Him inside 50, he can kick some amazing goals, and then every now and then he kicks one the wrong way. But like you said, he's a ruckman. He's pretty good at it.
Yeah, we expect that. As you speak, it's impressive to listen to you talk post-game about the trend and what sides are trying to do to the Melbourne side, understanding that their turnover game is so strong at the moment. Who is probably the best player out on the field to understand the trend of the game really early and try and filter that through the playing group of how a side is trying to attack against a Melbourne moment?
Yeah, we got guys like Alex Nilbull and Angus Brayshaw, I guess. Unsung heroes a bit, their leadership on the footy field. Gussie being down back now and Alex Nilbull being up forward. Their ability to be able to see the trends of the game and then really direct us and get us set up how we need to change momentum or get the game looking like we want it. So, they're two leaders of our football club. They just do an amazing job and have taken us to another level.
Jack, you would have expected to go head-to-head with your great mate Ollie Wines in the midfield for most of the night. Unfortunately, he was subbed out early in the game, feeling a bit crook. We saw the vision of you talking to him after the game. Is he doing okay?
Yeah, I'm not too sure what's gone on with Ollie. I think he was just feeling a bit off, so I was hoping to catch up with him tomorrow, but he'd probably have some tests or some scans or whatnot. So fingers crossed, Ollie's all okay.
Hey, Jack, the beauty of playing on a Thursday night and a win, you've got the weekend off, you're interstate, a few beers tonight in the hotel room. What
Barossa Valley.
Yeah, what does it look like for the boys? Got a couple of days off?
Mate. A couple of days off. A few of the boys heading to the Grand Prix tomorrow, so we've actually got a few boys who live up here as well, or from Adelaide, so they'll stay around for a few days and get around the family. So, we've had a couple of quick turnaround, 6-day breaks in a row, so the guys are really hanging out for a couple of days off, a few beers with each other tonight.
And do you know if any of the guys are going to stay for the women's grand final Saturday? They're going to hang around for a couple of days and have a look?
Yeah, unfortunately we're flying back tomorrow, but I know, the guys that are staying back from, hanging around here in Adelaide, they'll be heading to the game. Super exciting opportunity. The girls have been, a couple of years in the making. They've got pretty close, but they've finally done it. And really looking forward to taking it to the Adelaide girls.
Jack, thank you so much for your time. Well done on the win. Enjoy a couple of days rest before you are back into it up against the Giants on Saturday night.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Not much chance to rest, is there?
I can nearly tell you the people that will go to the Grand Prix. Sorry, sir. There'll be Harms, Tick, May, Gawn and Fritsch.
Is that because they're big Formula One fans, or they just like
those teammates?
One that get the opportunity.
They like to go to the
when there's a day off,
seen and take the
living
Instagram
in the fast lane.
Yeah. They're the names.
All right, we'll check back in with you on that one. All right, we're going to head into the newsroom now and join John Ralph. Ralphie, a few dramas. We've talked a little bit about Ollie Wines and Port Adelaide have some more dramas.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so nausea was the seemingly perplexing diagnosis for Ollie Wines, and I've checked in with the club and they've told me that's exactly what happened, a combination of nausea and also dizziness. Now, in that first half there, he felt lightheaded. There was no apparent head knock. He certainly wasn't rushed to hospital for more immediate scans there. And so, look, they'll just wait and see how he recovers. They do have a 9-day break. break before they take on Carlton next Sunday. So he's potentially every chance to play in that, but it was quite worrying. Now, Scott Lycett's shoulder injury came with no apparent contact, which again would be a worry for the medicos. They'd be worried about a partial dislocation, the subluxation there. He has suffered that injury to the left shoulder back in 2017. As you can see him there, he's almost trying to get it back into its socket. It didn't seem like it was an AC joint or a collarbone, and look, he was just winged for that second half. Sam Hayes is waiting in the wings. So Aliir, as the club told me pre-match, he's a sneaky chance off that syndesmosis to play next week, if not the week after. Robbie Gray still battling with that knee soreness, but they're also hopeful he will be able to play off a 9-day break. So for Melbourne, that embarrassment of riches, as you say, Harrison Petty, obviously Ben Brown coming out of the concussion protocols, will both play Saturday night in the VFL. Joel Smith's out with the health and safety protocols, but he'll be available the week after. So just extraordinary to think how strong this team is. Now for Ken Hinkley. So last pre-season, Ken Hinkley said the Power would win multiple premierships. Now on February 24, he said, this club believes in winning premierships and we set out in 22 to win the premiership. That's the litmus test. That is the comparison point. That's the measuring stick for a 0-4 start. It is utterly catastrophic. So it's not the end for Ken Hinkley, but it could be the start of the end. It's the kind of loss that gets the president, that gets the boardroom discussing what can we do about this situation. He's got 19 months on a contract that was only signed last January. Now, almost every coach these days has a 6-month payout clause. So do you want to call that $400,000? At some stage, it gets to the situation where it's a business decision. Do we lose more than $400,000 in memberships and marketing and all of the things that obviously fall away if the fan base goes against you? So he has 18 weeks to try and turn it around. That stat you keep talking about, only one of the last 33 teams has been able to recover from a 0-4 start to play finals. That was Sydney. They got wiped out in the first week. Got to do something extraordinary very quickly to try and save his job.
What do you think, George?
Oh, I think, yeah, when you put it out there, and they've always been quite brave in terms of their ambitions and making them quite public. So when you put it out there and you achieve those goals, you look really good. But when you put it out there and you start at 0-4, you look a little bit silly. But, I mean, they would have had full belief playoff in a prelim final last year and have primarily the same side as what they did last year. They wouldn't have expected the form drop-off that they've got this year.
The concern is you can lose. It's okay to lose. Every team loses, but sometimes it's the way you lose that becomes the issue. And I think tonight, to not have a goal at half-time, the way they played, I can see a lot of interest over in South Australia with more to talk about the way they lost rather than just playing their brand and not being good enough. That's okay. But I thought the way they lost tonight was really disappointing.
If they write off 2022, what will fascinate me is what they attribute it to. What they say the reason is for the failure, and then why can they turn it around again next season? Because I thought they were ready to go this year. They've got some good young quality players coming up and through, but maybe we've overestimated some of those experienced players and what levels they can continue to play at. So it's going to be, I think we're going to learn a lot over the next 12 weeks too about what Ken does and whether he starts to introduce some new players and starts to find out more about his list, or whether he continues to show faith in the same players.
And as you said in the pre-game, it is a really bad year to be having a bad year, given the coaching talent that is waiting in the wings.
There's a bloke that was a Port assistant a while ago.
Jocko Williams. No, he wasn't an assistant, he was a coach. But you're right, I mean, you never want it, and you always want this progression where you play in prelim finals and you play in grand finals, and you don't ever want to write off a season. But history suggests that if you have some sort of year where you thought you had high hopes and you have great disappointment, the good sides bounce back and become stronger for it. Maybe it's Port Adelaide this year, and Port Adelaide fans don't want to see it. They were quite hopeful, like Jason said before, but maybe it's just that year that they have the over-expectation and maybe the complacency that might have set in without them knowing.
The only issue with that, though, I see is Robbie Gray and Trav Boak, who have done it for so long, aren't getting any younger. Yep. Charlie Dixon, who's been a big mainstay, banged up. You know, how much longer has he got left? Jonas as well is now over 30. So I just worry that they're players that have been, you know, the ones that have really led by example through this period where they've been so terrific, you know, aren't getting any younger and they're not going to get back to their best.
It's just so early in the year to be talking about a team we thought as a premiership contender in this kind of conversation. The reigning premiers remain undefeated for season 2022, going to Adelaide Oval and getting the job done. Their record there is quite impressive. They've won 6 of their past 7 in Adelaide, getting the job done over Port tonight, and they were super professional, Jace.
Yeah, and I think when we listen to the press conference from Simon Goodwin, I don't suspect there'll be a lot of stressful moments for him. I think there's There's no, you know, deep and meaningful questions coming his way. It's just business as usual. And they just roll on, and that's the sign of a really good club. Although they can't quite get their sponsors board worked out.
Wasn't super smooth, was it? We are waiting.
The best thing is, Goody's just sitting there going, what are they doing back here?
It's amazing, all the advancements in technology.
Yeah.
They still have the old school roll, you know, the old sponsors board at the back that can fly down, fall on their heads.
It'll be a pretty easy press conference for Simon Goodwin anyway compared to Ken Hinkley. Let's go there now.
I know that's too hard to replicate, but where do you think you are?
Yeah, I think one thing that we've been really conscious of is not trying to be perfect. And I think, you know, at the end of last season, you know, we played a pretty dominant final series which all came together at once. But one thing that we maintained throughout the whole season was our ability to win contests and win defensively. And, you know, that's been our identity as a footy team for the last 18 months. And that's what we are at the moment. And I'm really happy and proud of our group. They can keep investing in the right areas of the game and they keep getting the results they need. And the rest of it will start to come together as the year goes on.
So you're locked in for 40 minutes in a pretty tense contest there, and then you just break it in 15. Where do you get that? Where do you get that notion of just kicking 5 goals and just blowing out a game?
I think our players are really confident in the way they play and they know they can score when they need to score. But more importantly, they can defend for long periods of time. And, you know, we saw that again tonight. You know, we won a lot of contests in that first half. We defended really strongly. And when we got our opportunity, you know, we were able to break the game open. And I think it's the power of the group that they can find another level when they need to. And, you know, in that second quarter, they really felt the game and got it on the scoreboard, which was great.
Did you always feel confident when that arm wrestle was going on in that first half that the guys had the patience and composure to sort of break that open?
Yeah, we did. Like Port were playing pretty well. You know, the first quarter, you know, they were getting time in half, they were getting entry. We were defending our D50 well. We were under a little bit of pressure, but that's the way we play sometimes. You know, we can absorb pressure, we can defend the ground when we need to, and I always knew that if we continued to do that, that the game would turn, and it did as the quarter went on and then into the second quarter.
You mentioned Port's pressure. Did you still feel comfortable though defensively, because they seem to be quite inefficient going forward?
Yeah, look, I think you feel comfortable when, you know, teams are having long shots at goal or not marking the ball inside 50, and you know, we felt really comfortable in that space. Clearly they were taking a lot of marks and it was part of the way they were going to play the game, but, you know, the way we defend gave us every opportunity on turnover, and that's the area of our game that's in really good shape, you know, scoring on the back of some turnover, and it was evident again tonight.
So what do you think you're adding to what wasn't there last year that can make you even better this year?
I think it'll just evolve as the year went on. You know, we've had some positional changes. You know, Angus Brayshaw's gone to half-back and looked really comfortable. James Jordan's holding down the wing and looking really good in the way that he plays. But for me, it's really about our identity as a team and continuing to embrace that and recognise that and love it for what it is. And not trying to be perfect, just trying to do our job and be the best we can in that phase of the game. And, you know, tonight, I couldn't have been prouder of the group. You know, they were really strong in that phase of the game and they got the results. So our improvements will evolve as the year goes on, as they do every year. You find little things and you continue to learn about personnel, you continue to learn about method, you continue to learn about what opposition are going to try and do against you. We're by no means a finished product at this stage. You know, we're still building it brick by brick for this season, and we'll see where it ends up.
So what do you define as that identity?
Contest defence. We're really strong on those two phases of the game, and we have been for 18 months, and we'll continue to try and be really strong in those areas of the game.
Did you feel like it was Max's best game of the season?
Yeah, that's been building for a few weeks. I was wrapped for the skipper tonight. I thought he led incredibly well, and you know, he's been really close the last couple of weeks, you know, especially aerially. And I thought tonight he was a really dominant player on the ground. I thought he had a huge impact on the result, and he led right from the front. And that's what you need when you're on the road against a strong footy club. You know, on their home ground, you need your leaders to stand up. And I thought Max was sensational.
Yes, he was backed up by Luke, especially in the first 2 quarters. He took some really important marks behind the ball.
Yeah, it's great. You know, we've got a really dynamic duo between the two of them. They respect each other for what they bring. They're a great combination, and you know, they've spoken with each other about how they will continue to feel what the game needs from each other. And they are two completely different players in terms of what they offer. But I thought tonight that duo was a real standout for us.
Do you see that, I guess, that aspect of loose game is the area where he can improve on this season? Like just going back and taking those marks behind the ball.
I certainly got better at his general play positioning, and he's worked really closely with Max on developing that, and he's starting to have an impact behind the ball, especially aerially. So, it's great for Max to be able to spend the time with Luke along with Greg Stafford to really get that positioning right, and you can see he's quite a dominant player when he gets it right.
So I'm going to lean on your vision. What is different about Port Adelaide from the one you knew from last year?
That's not for me to really talk about, Rooch. All we do is we come in and we respect our opposition, and we know they're a really strong footy club. They've got some personnel that are key personnel that are out at the moment, and when you look back through their first 3 games, they should really be 2-1, coming into tonight. And that's the fine line that we play in our industry. It's a tough industry to win in. It's a ruthless competition. They're a good footy team. They'll turn things around, and I'm sure in the not-too-distant future they'll be winning some games of footy.
Is that based on your own experience from 2019?
Oh, look, I just look at the footy club. They're a strong footy club. So, as I said, that's not for my position to talk about, but I just know what we're up against and that they're a strong footy team.
Can Higley come under, I guess, a bit more pressure? He's under very significant pressure in Adelaide. As a senior coach, seeing another kind of go through that, how does it make you feel to an extent?
I think we're all, as senior coaches, we sit in the same chair and we understand the pressures that come with footy, and we've all been in the position where we lose games of footy. And as I said, he's a good coach. They're a strong footy club. They'll turn things around and they'll start winning, and we'll respect them for that.
Thanks, Bree.
Thank you, guys.